Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Vashawn Jones, visionary of Fedora Outlier LLC, and you guys have heard and seen enough of me. So the cameras are pointed to the two people that I promised you would see. Two very special individuals. And the title of this one is Who Raised You? And these two people raised me. I like to introduce to the world my mother and my father, Mr. Ulysses D. Boone on my left and Cynthia L. Boone on my right. Say hello, world.
Hello, world.
Hey, world.
And I have 6 other siblings. Mother, give me the names of my female siblings.
You want all the kids in order?
I want
Female.
female.
Female. Dana, Unique Spratley.
All right. She
Sarah, Monique Boone.
Well,
And Lydia Boone. No middle name.
one married.
Yes, just the one.
There you go. And Dad, the other 3 brothers that I have.
Titus Timothy Boone is the oldest boy after you. And then there's Ulysses Gideon Boone, which we call Gideon. And then there's Matthias Benjamin Boone. That's the baby boy.
And that is the Boone clan.
Yes.
So let's take it way, way back, even before me. How did you two fine people meet, Dad?
I was an assistant manager at Church's Fried Chicken in Norfolk, Virginia. And my wife was working at the store in Portsmouth, the store that I originally was hired at when I was just a team member. And so they sent me back over to that store to assist the brand new manager. And when I got there, that first day I went over there to scope things out, I saw this fine chocolate thing. She was making chicken. And I was over there in my Colombo overcoat. And
wrinkled.
And I leaned up against that walk-in freezer, just watched her make that chicken. I said, she sure is fine. And so after we got to working and knowing one another and me making suggestions, she finally said, I'm gonna have to let this boy check things out. And we started dating, and
Me.
the rest is history. It's been like 36 years now.
The rest is history. It's 36 years. So it's 3 sides to every story. So let's get the other side. Mama, what was going on when you was making that chicken?
All my mind was on was how cool and fine that flour was that I had my hands in making chicken.
Man, I thought you'd say cool and fine. The flour was cool and fine.
No. Originally, I did not think that he was my type. I was actually trying to hook him up with one of our coworkers who was a friend of mine.
Yep.
And she really wanted him.
What?
So we would always work we worked the night shift, closing out. And on some days, not every day. And so we would tease Dad and make all kind of suggestive promises that we weren't going to keep.
Right.
And but it turned out that eventually I got to know him. I fell in love with his intelligence and his kindness, and that is what won me.
So you say he wasn't your type. What did you know what your type was, or you just?
Well, I actually thought that whoever I decided to settle down with would be a very tall person.
Oh, very tall.
Very tall, and because I'm short, and most short people gravitate towards tall people, and Dad was my height, so that in itself wasn't what I was looking for at the time, but. You don't always know who's best for you. We have an idea who may be best for us, but I understood that later on in life that God gives you who He thinks that you deserve to have. And in the case of Dad, 36 years down the line, I really knew that he was the person that God meant for me to have.
Right, and back then, like groups like Shalimar and the Confunction and all them was out. All the light skinned brothers was in. So was that part of it?
No, that wasn't a part of it. Skin color, as far as, light or dark, didn't have a lot to play into it. I was never attractive to lighter skinned men because I just didn't. I wasn't.
Okay.
That didn't attract me like it did some girls. Because to me, it was the image part of complexion. It was always you know, a lighter skinned person was always getting attention anyway. So I didn't feel like they needed any more attention.
Okay.
And I was just an average person. In my mind, I'm just an average young lady. And so I wasn't looking for anything fabulous like it, as far as that was concerned.
Gotcha. So, Dad, did you have a T-top Thunderbird then, or?
No, at that time when I met your mother, I had a blue Skylark, faded paint job, but the car itself
Ran good.
sound. I mean, it was excellent sound. My grandfather was a mechanic. He was a race car driver and a mechanic. And when I came back to Virginia and wanted a car, I asked him to find me a car. And he found me that car for $500. But before I had a chance to get it to him, he died. And he told his wife not to give me that car until I paid her that $500 because he was a very responsible man.
Mm-hmm.
And so I paid her the $500 and I got that car and it was a 71 Skylark and it drove like a Cadillac. It was just ugly,
Right.
The engine
Right.
was sound, the transmission was sound. It rolled. My mother commented that it rolled like a Cadillac.
Mama, did it roll like a Cadillac?
I only was in it a few times because at that time we were, just getting to know one another. And I normally would walk to and from work. And on like inclement weather, every now and then, once he started working in the same store in the same shift with me, he would give me a ride home. Well, he actually would give both of us, my best friend at the time, Angie, or Angel as we call her, give both of us rides to work because we lived in a duplex, and I lived on one side of the duplex and she lived on the other.
Right.
So we would get rides home from work with him.
On George Washington. Off
On
of
George Washington Highway. We lived on Oak Street.
Oak Street.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
In Portsmouth, Virginia.
The duplex was kind of like the double house, like a double
Yeah.
apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that was your best friend.
Yeah. At the time. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I ain't gonna touch that one. So there, you meet her, and she has this little boy, which is me. How did that kind of fare into your thought process of getting with somebody that had a kid?
Well, when I first met your mother and worked with your mother and started chasing your mother, I never knew about you.
Oh.
Yeah, I never knew about you. And because we weren't close,
Mm-hmm.
But I had my eyes on her and she knew that I had my eyes on her. But like she said, they used to tease me and stuff like this. Well, one night, it was the 14th of February, 1981. I showed up at her door at midnight with a single rose. Knocked on the door, she came to the door. I gave her the rose, and I immediately turned around and walked off.
That was player.
Yeah, I think that's what won her over, and we started dating from then. And that's when I met you,
Uh-huh.
And it didn't bother me at all that she had a child because I had made up in my mind that I wanted to be with her,
Mm-hmm.
And so we started seeing one another dating. I had an apartment in town in Portsmouth, Midtown probably, and you and her were staying in a duplex, and I would come over to her house sometimes, and y'all would come over to my house sometimes. But I think the thing that caused me to really like you and want to be responsible for you was that you had a determination. You were 4 or 5 years old, but it seemed like you had already made up your mind that you were going to be something in life. you know. And the thing that used to get me is that sometimes I weighed about 160 pounds, and I think you weighed about probably 50 or 60 pounds.
Damn,
But-
average, yeah.
Yeah, average. You know, because he was a little kid, and we used to wrestle. And I used to try to hold you, and I could tell you would never give up trying to break free. And just that thought process and that determination let me know that you had determination within inside of you, even though you were, you know, like your eyes were, you had some kind of genital defect where your eyes were like crooked and all that kind of stuff. But anyway,
Hey, it's just a defected child. Your eyes is crooked.
what would you describe it as? I think that's what you told me. That
Well, you always
cockeyed.
had what they call a roaming eye,
Right.
because one eye would twitch,
Right.
and that eventually developed into what most people would call being cross-eyed.
Right.
But it wouldn't. Most cross-eyed people, the eye stays crossed. Yours wouldn't do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he's a little boy, and
But people didn't know how to describe certain conditions back during that time. So that was, they
Seem
had
like
these.
Dad don't know how to
these
describe it now.
Yeah, they had all these bad terminologies
but
for stuff.
The whole point of the statement was that I thought that you were handicapped and had a life of handicap coming, but I could tell by your determination when we wrestled that you weren't gonna let none of that stop you. And that's how I raised you, you know?
Right.
You used to come to me and ask me, Dad, what about this and what about that? And I used to always tell you, Van, you can do anything you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what kind of obstacles you got in your way. You can do anything you want to do. And I guess I was right.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So then you guys like really get together and start doing boyfriend and girlfriend stuff, and you made Dana. What was kind of the relationship process at that point? You get a child, mama comes to you and say she pregnant, and mama, how did you do that? How did you tell them, and then what happened?
We worked together. Like I said, I met her.
He said, "Mama."
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Don't be taking over our interview.
Right, our interview.
Go ahead.
And well, once I found out because I really didn't want any other children. But in all of that, I still wasn't doing anything to prevent having children, no birth control or anything.
Right.
But once I found out I was pregnant, I told Dad about it, and he just was kind of happy and kind of a little confused too, because he was under the impression that he wasn't able to have children.
Right.
And so, once he told his mom about it and all that, and she probably had comments to make in reference to, yeah, Leslie, go ahead and get married or whatever the case. I don't know what the statements were.
Right.
But we had always talked during the time that we were dating. We always had conversations about our lives. As a matter of fact, last night we were all sitting around the table talking about it. But we had both come from a set of divorced parents. My mom and dad was divorced. His mom and dad had been divorced. And we would always discuss what we wanted our future lives to be like if we married someone, not necessarily each other, but just anyone. And so when we found out that I was pregnant, then the conversation switched over to now, what do we want as, in a relationship as, a man and a woman. Mm-hmm. And so we knew when he asked me, would I marry him? And, naturally I said yes, because I was determined I wasn't going to be a single mom all my life.
Right.
And also because I respected him and loved him in a way that, it was just something about his demeanor and his personality that kind of commanded respect, from an individual. Mm-hmm. Because you couldn't find anything to point your finger at and say that he doesn't deserve respect.
Right.
And he didn't deserve your love and your attention. And so that in itself is what kept me so focused on the relationship of him and I. And so, and then he was just such a sweet person. He was a very thoughtful, well, I won't say was, is a very thoughtful person because, you know, he always considering me, you know, and I wasn't used to that. I had, you know, a couple of players in my life, and
Right.
that that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted some type of commitment from an individual. And that's what he brought to the table. He brought commitment.
Right. So, Dad, you told Grandma about Mama being pregnant and what happened. Did you tell her? I mean, I know you
Well,
told her, but what happened?
I wanted to take it a different approach of what I was about to say. Like I said, I met your mother in February of '81. Okay, and so we had been together for a whole year until she got pregnant. I know exactly when she got pregnant. It was in the 4th of January.
Back of that skylight.
The 4th of January,
No.
1982.
All right.
Okay, so we had been together almost a whole year. Well, it probably was February of '82 because Dana was born in October of '82. But I knew exactly when she had gotten pregnant, you know, and so she finally came and told me and confirmed that she had gotten pregnant. And right then, I had made up my mind. I told her, I said, all right, you can quit working. I'll take care of y'all. That's what I told her. Because it goes back to my upbringing, you know. My father was a very, very strong provider, you know. We had things that no other person in the neighborhood had at the time that we had it. So he was a very good provider. So those work ethics were already in me.
Right.
You know. But one thing he did though, him and my mom got divorced when we were 16. You know, when I was 16. And that's about the time when you really, you know, when you're an adolescent, you really need a father.
Right.
And I was determined that I had a wrestling accident, and that's why I thought that I couldn't have children. But
Right.
really, that was just ignorance. Okay. So when she got pregnant and told me she was about to have my child, I said, "That's it. That's it for me." You know.
Right.
I want it. I'm gonna provide for it. I'm gonna provide for you because I don't want no daycare person raising my children.
Right.
I want her to raise my children. You know. So I told her she could quit working, and I would take care of her. And my brother was rooming with me at the time in that apartment. I gave up the apartment, came and lived with y'all because y'all were closer to the shipyard.
Okay.
You know, I was working at the North Naval Shipyard at the time, and y'all were closer. I was within walking distance, so I could walk to work. You know, and and so we just set up shop right there in that 1-bedroom place, and
For a little while, anyway.
yeah, for a little while became a family, and so I was, you know, I told my mother that I was about to give her a grandchild, and you know, man, she was all excited about it and stuff like that.
Right.
But she never had any decision into whether or not I was gonna keep the child or not, or walk away from the relationship or not.
Right.
She had nothing to do with that. Okay, at that time. Okay, and so a little while into the relationship, me and your mama started having some disagreements, you know, and one of them, and it's funny because it was something so simple that it never should have escalated,
Right.
you know, and those type of things still go on now.
36 years later.
36 years later.
Right.
But love transcends all of that, you know. So anyway, we got into an argument and I walked out. You know, I went back and I always had a room at my mom's house. I went back to my mom. My mom, man, then she bugged me to death. Well, what's gonna happen to the baby and all this kind of you need to go on back. You need to go back to Cindy, you know. And that's what, you know, forced me to go back. But I was already committed, you know, that I was gonna take care of my family. But back then I was young and, you know, a little bit wavery. But once I got on my feet, you know, we just went from there and 7 kids later.
Yeah, let's talk about the 7 kids. Cause Mama, you say you didn't want kids, and you make one mistake, and you always told me don't keep making the same mistake. Not saying that the other brothers and sisters.
But
why you keep having more kids?
You were not. I would not say that you were a mistake.
I know I was, because you said you wanted me.
Right. It wasn't planned because, okay, I was a very, very naive individual.
Oh, you?
I was, yes. Growing up, I was very naive. Didn't have a whole lot of life experience. Had not done very much. I was a homebody. I like to stay around the house, read books, stuff of that, like that nature. Reading the dictionary, learning new words, and that was the type of person that I'm still like that to a certain extent, but not as deep as I was back then. And so when I did find out that I was actually pregnant with you, it was disbelief, and then the reality started to set in as time went on. And so when I got married to Dad, and after finding out that, I was pregnant with Dana, that was just one of those things that I just took on that responsibility. There's no denying a child. There's no denying that this is your individual that now you are responsible for. And I was never one to shy away from responsibility. I'm going to do what I have to do no matter what. And then, getting saved and being in church and learning from some of the older women in the church about the responsibilities of a wife, a mother, and looking at it on the biblical side of it also, it helped me. It helped to develop me more so into the mother that you all knew, where I would do anything to make sure that you all were raised properly. And so as the kids started to come, because naturally Dad and I, we're in love, so that's a part of a relationship. The coming together as husband and wife is a part of the relationship. And and the scriptures talk about marriage is honorable and the bed is undefiled. Which means that being married is an honor. And whatever a married couple does, as long as it's within the guidelines of what the scripture says, there's nothing wrong with it. And so birth control is not one of those things that we are taught or should not be taught as Christians, because, that's a part of it. And some women are more fertile than others, and men too. So therefore, you may have a couple of kids. Some women may only have one, some may have more than one. Our first pastor, the first church that was in, him and his wife had 10. And then later on, we met people in other churches by association that had 12 and 13. My grandparents had 12. So there was somewhere down the line. And on the other hand, with Dad's mother, she was an only child. So, it just kind of worked out that way. But yes, in answer to your original question, I did not want a lot of children when I was younger, because I had seen so many bad examples of women just continually having children. And I guess that's probably was the main beginning of baby mama daddies and all this kind of terminology, because these women was just having babies and they was expecting these men to step up to the plate and be responsible for them and the kids, and they weren't. So then they moved on to a new relationship. And see, and I was determined that wasn't going to happen to me. And that's probably why at the age that I was 21 when I had you.
Right.
And whereas most young women were having kids at 16, 17, and 18. So I actually was of legal age to be a parent, even though I wasn't married at the time.
Well, if Dad had child support, boy, he'd still be paying.
Yeah, he used to always say he would go run to Canada.
Right. I'm a timeline type of person. When I think about the past, I think about it linear. I think about it in a timeline. And like I said, she got pregnant around about February. Dana was born in October. Okay? We got married in December. And we got saved in January. Okay? So what happened was, by me all of a sudden having a family of two children and a wife, I was unprepared as a man. Mm-hmm. I was unprepared. I had that thought of determination that I wanted to take care of my family, but I was unprepared, totally unprepared. Nobody had ever instructed me about a family. I just knew what I had viewed from my family. Mm-hmm. My mother and father never fought with one another, in our presence. All of a sudden, they just divorced. Okay? Mm-hmm. But, so I needed some guidance. And I know that. And I've always been that way. Whenever I got a problem, seek guidance to solve it, Mm-hmm. Nowadays, it's easy because you got YouTube and all that stuff. If I need to know how to fix something, I'll look it up on YouTube. Boom, there it is, Right. But back then, the computer technology wasn't prevalent like that.
Right.
So I started praying because that's the only thing I knew. I started praying, and I asked the Lord for guidance. And at every year at the shipyard, they would have a furlough during Christmas time. Mm-hmm. And the last day before Christmas, we would all eat and fellowship that last day. And I walked up on this conversation. This man was he had a motorcycle suit on and a helmet, one of them Dixie flag type helmets. Mm-hmm. And he was talking to people in a group, and he made the comment that he had traveled all over the country with 10 kids, and his wife ain't never had to work. Mm. That sounded like the answer to my problem. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we went on furlough vacation, and when we came back, I was in an apprenticeship program, so every 3 months they would transfer us to a new department. And when I came back after that furlough, they transferred me to his department. I walked into the department to get my assignment, and I saw that same guy sitting at a toolbox, and on his toolbox he had a letter, a plaque, and it said, T.J. McDougal, counselor. And I said, oh, yeah, I can get some counseling. So I introduced myself, and I told him who I was, and I sat down, and we started talking. And we striked up such a relationship by me asking questions and he giving me answers that one day he invited me to go to church with him. Mm-hmm. And I went to church with him, and I got saved that night and came back home. Mama didn't want to have nothing to do with it. Don't you be talking that Jesus stuff to me. I know you. I know you. I know what you do. Because I was into all kinds of stuff. Right. She said, I'm going to give you 7 days. I told her, the Lord freed me from all that stuff. Smoking, drinking, all that kind of stuff. Right. And she said, I don't believe it. But I'm going to watch you. I give you 7 days. And in 7 days, we were laying in bed one night, and she woke up crying in tears. And I had nothing. I'd known this woman for a whole year and 3 months. She was strong as a rock. Right. And I had never seen her cry. Right. She woke up in tears. Come on, I'll follow you. I said, what's wrong, Cindy? What's wrong? She said the Lord had showed her a vision of all the demons in her midst, and floating in the air and stuff. And she said she looked over at me, and I had this glow about me, and I was at peace. And from that time on,
you've been leaving her ever since. She's been following.
Yeah, she followed me into holiness. And it was holiness that dictated to us, be fruitful and multiply. And I always say that I think that the children were the making of her, because sometimes in life we have a vision of what we want, but life sort of impacts you and stirs you in other directions, because I had a vision of women that I wanted too, petite, light skin, long hair, all that kind of stuff, stuff that your mother was not. But I knew that there was something inside of her that was strong as a rock, and I needed something to hold on to, I needed, when the storm came, I needed a rock to cling to, and she was it, So I just made up my mind right then that, we had just gotten married, and I didn't know which course to plot, but when I met Elomac and went into holiness, that seemed like the course for me. So I learned the gospel, I dug in like a tick, learned the gospel and everything until it was time to go another way. But by that time, we had birthed into the world 6 more kids.
Got you. Yeah. Now, one of the things that I talk about, especially when I'm dealing with employment, entrepreneurship, finding or creating work for an individual, is bringing back apprenticeship and mentorship. Now, how big was that in your life?
Yeah, that was very big, because
Both, actually.
Yeah, when I got into something, I got into it wholeheartedly. You know, and I've always had that. Even though I was a child, I've always had this understanding that older people had a little bit more knowledge than me.
Right.
So whenever I met someone and they appeared to have a lot of knowledge, I was gonna get everything out of them that I could. You know, and I carried that throughout my whole machinist career. Every time I went to a new shop, every time I went to a new plant, every time I went to a new shipyard, I would spy out the most intelligent person that I thought was the most knowledgeable, intelligent person in there, and I would get to know and I would pick their brain. And every all the information that I got from them, I would add it to my repertoire, you know, until I had enough where I could start mentoring younger machinists. And that's the way I've lived my life.
Got you. And Mama, you've always been entrepreneurial. You've always, even now, you work a full-time career and you still have not one, two, or three. You have multiple streams of income. Where did you get that from, and how do you see that as being able to help someone, you know, in today's time trying to make it?
Well, this is what I normally tell most people about that, is that whenever you come up with an idea, always pursue that idea. Because I talk to people on my job, especially younger individuals, that always want to know how they can, you know, start a business or come up with an idea. And I say, well, what do you like to do? And then they'll tell me what they like to do. And I'll say, well, then that's what you need to pursue. Because you always want to work in having you know, a job or a business or whatever you want to, you know, call it, that you enjoy doing, and that it will make a profit for you as well as being a service to someone else. And just coming up for me, I've always been a saver, even as a little kid. Whatever someone, you know, I used to have this little square bank that looked like a vault.
I remember that.
And
Yep.
I remember that.
when my parents, the combination lock on it, a little red combination lock. Yep.
I remember that.
And when and I bought another one later on in life, you know, after I had you and Dad and I got together too.
Right.
Because actually, so that would have been my second one. But the first one, and you know, I was as a little kid, and you know, relatives and my dad and mom's friends would come over. Everybody, they would always drop money into it for me. And so that guy, and then when, you know, you open it up and you start counting all the money, because they would drop dollar bills and, you know, all types of denominations of money in it. And so that got me into the mindset of saving. And that carried over into my adulthood and even up until now. By being a stay-at-home mom, whenever, you know, the budget that I was given to carry on the things of the household, I would always pinch a little bit off of that and put it aside. And been putting it aside, what it was used for me was to buy, you know, go and buy clothes for you kids, or a toy every now and then, books, because I was always big on you all reading. So I would always buy, you know, take it to the library, or we would go to a thrift store and go in the book section, because the thrift stores sell books for 25 cents, 50 cents, and things of that nature. And they'd be practically good books. And then that would allow you all to read something different. And so it's just, I think it's just a part of me, a part of my DNA, to be a person that has to multitask and do different things. And so usually when I come up with an idea of what I want to do, I do my research. I find out where my niche market may be. I'll always find out, you know, what it's going to cost me to start up. And then after I find out that information, then I go into where can I get the product that I want to distribute. And then I go from there. I have a perfume oil business that I do casually. It's not one that I'm, you know, really big into. But I won a $500 MasterCard from being put in a suggestion on my job. And at the time, I didn't have any idea of what I wanted to. I didn't want to waste it. I didn't want to just go out and buy a pair of shoes or, you know, an outfit. I didn't even want to spend it on you kids at the time either, because there was nothing that the family really needed, you know. So what I did was I just, I decided. Dad had used to do perfume oils like Gucci, I mean not Gucci, but Obsession and all those different fragrances that used to be very popular. And so I thought about it and I did my research like always. And then I found a couple of companies where I could get my product back to me quickly to give to my customers. But I didn't want it to be prepackaged stuff from my vendors. I wanted something that I could do myself. And so I, found these companies and I started, mixing and putting stuff together, and it became really popular. I could sell it, really popular. But, currently, you know what I'm doing currently. And so, but it's just been a part of me to always want to work and make money.
Yeah. And
And I'm not a greedy person, so I never had these illusions of grandeur to be a multi-millionaire. I just like to do something that brings in an income, so that if I would have something to fall back on. If I ever could not work doing that anymore, what I'm current my main job.
Right.
If I ever lost that, I would always have something to fall back on as income.
What were you about to say there?
You remember when I was saying that I believe that the children was the making of her? Your mother did a fantastic job raising y'all. And I'll always say this, because she was tasked with a single person developing 7 lives, okay? And she did it basically, okay? Me being the provider, I never had to worry about my girls looking unseemly, hair unkempt, or nothing like that. I never had to worry about y'all being dressed dirty or nothing like that, because your mama had routines. You know what I'm saying? And I believe these routines helped to develop her mind into entrepreneurship, because she had 3 girls and 4 boys, and all of y'all were always fed on time, bathed on time, clothed on time, put down to bed on time. I was working 2 jobs sometimes, and I never lost a minute of sleep, because your mama would get up in the middle of the night and change y'all diapers and all that, so y'all wouldn't cry all night and all that kind of stuff, And I believe that going through these rituals over a period of 14 years develop into you a go-getter attitude. You know what I'm saying? A development attitude, because she developed y'all lives. I was out there just working for somebody else, bringing money home, but she was developing lives. And then when y'all all when Matthias got old enough to go to kindergarten, that's when she went to work outside of the home. And I believe that all that experience from raising y'all caused her how to be inventive, because we had a limited amount of income coming in, and outside of the bills that we had to pay, like utilities and all that kind of stuff, she was like magic, as far as clothing y'all and feeding y'all and preparing the meals and all that kind of stuff. It was just, to me, it was just magical, and that right there caused me to cling to her even more, because I knew I had a jewel. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if I had to work I don't care if I had to work 8 hours at the shipyard and then 8 hours at another shipyard. That's what I did, because I didn't want to break the cycle of what she was doing. And I believe that a lot. If she never had y'all, and she probably would have been prosperous, but she might have been selfish. She might have been self-centered, or not like that. But all those years, she made those sacrifices, and look what it turned out, Look at all the potential that y'all have, and your potential, I'm so proud of you, I just don't know what to do, man, because I remember what you came from.
Right.
And when I come to visit you and I see that you have this structure around you, and you have people around you that are loyal to you, I don't even have to worry about you.
Right.
All my other kids, sighted and healthy and all this, they don't have a tenth of the vision that you have for your life that they should have for their life, And it just makes me so proud.
Man, I appreciate it.
You made your daddy cry. Shame on you.
Man. I've always wanted to wait for, this day. I've always left home saying that I got to make it. And, that's the reason why I never, really came there all those years. It would be years before I would come back. Because I was screwing up. You know what I mean? And I
We've
just
all been there.
always said when I come back, and I always pray, let me go through what I need to go through and actually make it in life.
Right.
And that was my whole thought process. I didn't know what making it was. You know what I mean? I didn't know. I go completely blind, but I knew I had what it took to make it, whatever it was. And I started leaning on, church people that, I respected. I would call Anthony, I call Michael Faison, and they would say, man, you were different. And I'm thinking, yeah, I got a lot of whoopings. I got a lot of whoopings.
I knew you were gonna bring that up.
Yeah. But I am just thankful, man. Most people don't even have parents, and much less a father to step into their life and be a father. And I've raised a lot of kids, that won't matter because of, what he showed me. And D in the middle name is DEE player. It ain't no D period around here. So let's go through the lightning round. And I love you guys, of course. And I always want to say, Mom, I made it. Now I made it. For me in my heart. You know what I mean? It's not the stuff that I have or anything. It's changing that inner person.
Right.
Exactly. That deceitful, lying, cheating, always trying to get over, person. I've always had a lot of stuff, hook or crook, but, when you straighten out the crook, it's easier to make it happen. So the lightning round. So what would you tell anybody, marital advice? What would be your best marital advice? You guys did it for 36 years. What's your number one marital advice?
You got to be a sacrifice. You for what you love, you have to be willing to be the sacrifice. And that if you keep that thought at all times that I'm not living this life for me, I'm living this life for someone else, you won't quit. I was an individual. I was intelligent. I picked up on things quickly. But I would never walk out like my father walked out. You know what I'm saying? Because I call myself the sacrifice. I wanted to make sure that I bought enough money in that house that Mama had what she needed to continue, what she needed to raise y'all. So that'd be my number one advice. For the person you love, you got to be willing to be the sacrifice.
Mama?
I think my number one advice and the first thought that came to my mind was being willing to sit down and have the discussions, to talk things out, no matter how heated it may get. Just don't stop the communication.
Yep.
Keep the communication there. You may walk away from each other even within your own house for a couple of days without speaking. You might grunt, at each other, that caveman stuff. Yeah, or not say anything at all, but just go about doing your normal routine. Don't give up on one another in the relationship. And I think a lot of individuals nowadays are so quick to give up and not put in the work towards that, developing that relationship. And communication and friendship. Always think of your mate as your friend above any other person. That's your best friend in the world.
Yep.
Because that individual has gotten to know you to the point that they can tell you when you need something. You think the same way. You want the same things in life. And that's normally what a friend is like. You have the same goal sets. You may go about them differently, but you have the same goal sets.
Yep.
So communication and being best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Even before you decide to get married, make the person that you are involved with, that person has to become like your best friend.
Mm.
Yeah.
You said lightning round, so I tried to make it fast.
I was thinking of one more. I was thinking, do I go work? Yeah, let's go work for the last question because you guys got to get out of here. Not that you got to go, but you got a flight to catch. I ain't kicking you out.
Yeah, in about an hour or so.
So work. You guys taught us to wash cars, rake yards, cut the grass, pick your own switches to get your whoopings with. Get your own money to get your own haircut, to buy your own shoes, whatever it took to make it. What was you all's thought process behind making sure that we understood the value of working?
Well, first of all, I try to always lead by example. You know, I don't think out of the whole 36 years that your mother and I have been together that I was out of work more than 6 months, and that was because I was going to school to learn another trade. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so I knew that eventually I wanted y'all not to be dependent on me, but independent on yourself, you know, to yourself. And in order to do that, you know, you had to have good work ethics. You know, if your mama just let y'all, because she had y'all washing walls, washing dishes,
baseboards,
making up your own bed. She taught you how to iron your own clothes, how to wash your own clothes. All of these things are tools that you were going to need when you get out on your own, you know. And so that was part of the thought process. And I've been a machinist for 36 years, and I've probably worked 13 different jobs in that field. And every time I go into that field, I always tell the younger people that are wondering what to do, get a marketable skill. Mm-hmm. You know, whether it's a profession, whether it's a trade, it has to be something that is needed in the world. Mm-hmm. And once you achieve that, I'm not talking about just flipping burgers or something like this, something that's going to make you stand out in the world. You know, and that's what I always tell them. Because, you know, I've known people to go to college for 4 years, you know, and fields like English and psychology and things like this, and then get out of college and don't even use what they've had to sacrifice them 4 years for, you know. But once you have a trade or a profession or a skill, then that's something that's always in demand, you know. Doctor, lawyer, engineer, machinist, welder, even down to something as simple as a forklift driver, you know. You can go anywhere in the world and be a forklift driver. You might not make the type of money that you want, you know, but you'll always have employment. And now if you have your sights set on being rich, then you have to find something legal in the world that the world needs, you know. Take you, for instance, you had a handicap, or what people would consider as a handicap. And I remember one time you told me you wouldn't have it any other way, mm-hmm. because it keeps you focused. Yep. It keeps you driven, you know. Mm-hmm. So you took what others would consider your handicap, and you are able to help the entire world overcome that handicap in what you do, and made a business out of it, you know. Yep. To me, that blows my mind.
Blow my mind too.
That blows my mind. Yeah. And that's when I'm gonna stop because I can talk forever. Go ahead, Mom. I'm gonna get Mama.
Well, Dad hit on it point blank when he said making sure that you all became independent. Mm-hmm. My desire, not only for you but for all of the kids, was that you would grow up, first of all, be responsible adults, responsible for your own behavior in life, and that you would not become a burden on anyone else, and you didn't have to depend on anyone else but to a certain extent. And so by teaching you all simple little concepts like how to wash a dish properly, or you know, how to vacuum and how to clean, or whatever it may have been. And the purpose of Dad was for washing the walls was because they kept their hands on the walls all the time, and I would see sticky fingerprints. So I taught you that, you know, there were consequences for behavior, and that was one of the consequences. If you're going to dirty up the walls, then you're going to clean up what you mess up.
That's right.
And so knowing that consequence, thought was, in the world, you'll have consequences for all behavior. And in order to know what reward you will reap for good behavior and what reward you will reap for bad behavior, was to teach you all how to do certain skills, simple skills. And that in itself should lead to being an independent individual that's able to function in the world among other people. Like the Bible said, you are among them, but you're not with them. In other words, your behavior doesn't have to mirror someone else's bad behavior. You would know the difference.
Yeah. In the world, but not of the world.
Yeah, that's the one.
Got you. Got you. All right. Well, this has been a good one as always. It's just amazing to really be sitting here and actually being able to have something in your mind and see it come to fruition years and years later. All of this, and you guys can't see it, but to be able to independently shoot video and send it out to the world, empower the world, is truly a dream come true. Mm-hmm. And in case you guys don't know, my name is Vashawn Jones. I am black, and the world would say that's one strike against you. I'm blind,
but have sight.
And the world would say that's another strike against you. I filed bankruptcy, another strike. I filed for a divorce, another strike. I didn't graduate from high school, and they would say it's another strike. And I'm here to tell you guys with all my heart that if I can do it, then you can do it.
That's right.
Yes.
And I'm here to help.
That's it.
Let's change the world. Let's change the world together.